Hello everyone. In this podcast, I am having a conversation with Miko Matsumura. Miko was born and brought up in America, but his parents are from Japan. He is a serial entrepreneur and he is a venture capitalist who has been the seed investor of multiple unicorns. He is now the managing director of GUI Crypto Capitals. He also has a deep understanding of artificial intelligence and he is an expert on vector databases. I met him at the Action AI conference and India Hackathon organized by Corner. But this video is not about technology. This video is exploring a very different side of Miko, which is the spiritual side. Interestingly, Miko is a Vaishnav and he has read the Bhagavad Gita, he understood the essence of Bhagavad Gita, and he has the clarity and experience to explain it also. And he came into Sanatan Dharma from a background which is a mix of Buddhism and the Shintoism of Japan. So he is bringing this global aspect and the comparative study of Sanatan Dharma with Buddhism, Shintoism, paganism, and the native religion of China. Unfortunately, I have recorded this conversation on a single camera without proper mic. So you may not find the best video quality, but I am sure you will enjoy the conversation. This is a very deep conversation and one of the best spiritual conversations that I have had in a very long time. Watch the video, enjoy it, and let me know your feedback in the comments. Hello everyone, and we have with us today Miko Matsumura. This is how you pronounce your name?
Yes, that's right.
All right, great. So very nice to have you, Miko, on the show. We met at a conference. It was a technological conference, but I get to know a very different side of Miko. So Miko, how do you introduce yourself? Do you introduce yourself as a serial entrepreneur, as a Bitcoin expert, or
I think my primary function is in venture capital. So
okay.
I'm with Gumi Cryptos Capital. We're a $110 million fund to vehicle investing and focusing on Web3 technology and blockchain.
Great. So Miko, you are born in America, if I'm not wrong, right?
That's right.
You are born in America, but your parents are from Japan.
That's right.
Right. So Japan, America, and you are traveling across the world, right?
Huh.
Tell us more about your upbringing. How were you when you were a kid, right? How did this entire transition happen, right? So what happens that what makes Miko what it is today?
Yeah, thank you very much. So I was born in the United States, but my parents are Japanese, and the Japanese knowledge system is quite an interesting one, which is that culturally, Japan is a fusion of indigenous atavistic paganism, direct nature worship, called Shintoism. And that in Shintoism, all mental objects, everything that can be discerned, it effectively contains this godhead called kami, right? So it's effectively like a direct nature worshiping system, right? And the thing that's really intriguing about the Japanese knowledge system, like all pagan systems, that once the discernment has sort of split two mental objects, then the new object is considered a new god.
Okay.
Right? And the idea becomes that each...
So what do you call this religion?
This is Shintoism.
Shintoism. Different from Buddhism.
Correct. Okay. So what happened in Japan is that Buddhism came essentially from China.
Okay.
Right? And obviously it got to China from India, right? And when you trace the history, what happened, the historical transmission was through the fifth patriarch of Zen Buddhism, Bodhidharma, who came to the Shaolin Monastery in China, right? So what he was teaching dhyana, which is really just meditative capacity, and this was received in China in the form of what is called Chan. Right. So Chan Buddhism is meditative Buddhism, right? And then Chan Buddhism came to Japan and became Zen Buddhism. Right?
Okay.
So
Bodhidharma actually came from south of India, right?
Yeah,
so South India. And if I'm not wrong, Bodhidharma also bring not just meditation, it also bring a kind of martial art also to Japan.
That's right. And he's rumored to have brought tea as well. So,
right.
So this is a very maybe mythical but extremely potent transmitter of the Buddha Dharma. So,
Okay.
This is kind of my own background, is this traditionally Japanese blend. But the thing to really understand about Japanese Buddhism is that it is Shinto infused, right? So really what's happened is that it is a nature worshipping indigenous system, and that the technology of Buddhism is effectively this single pointed attention. So it's the meditative attention applied to the study and direct worship of nature.
Okay. How is it now in Japan? I mean, is it like, as you are saying, it's a mix of Shintoism and Buddhism?
It's definitely continues to be a mix, right? But the blend generally favors Shintoism. Yeah, it generally favors Shintoism because Shintoism is the indigenous system, and Japan evaded colonization. Okay. So because of that, it has an intact paganism, which is It's unusual for a modern society to have a fully intact paganism.
So I'm a student of sociopolitics also.
Yes.
And please excuse me if a lot of my questions are coming from that socio-political background. Right. So I am a student of spirituality. I call myself a student of spirituality, social politics, and as both of us have in common that I know a little bit of technology also. So I am a student of technology also. I just want to mention this as a caveat that when you say Bodhidharma bring tea, so that tea in Japan and China is very different from the tea in India, right? Because most of the Indian audience will be watching this podcast, right? So the tea of India has a lot of milk in it.
Yes.
So that makes it unhealthy, as people say. But the tea that is used in Japan and China is very different, right? So it's more like in India in Hindi we have a word kada, which means that you boil a lot of leaves in hot water and then you drink that hot water. So that have a medicine effect.
Yes.
Right. But this tea that we are drinking today in India, that have very less medicinal value. So that has more cholesterol, all those things.
Yes.
And this has more British history.
Yes. Yes, for sure. One of the things that happens in Shintoism is, since the Godhead is decentralized, it's in all objects, right? When something like tea comes to Japan, then immediately it's noticed that this is something new, right? So in a sense, the way that it's treated is effectively as a potential new god, right? And so, for example, when you look at something like matcha, right? So, we all can go to the cafe and get a matcha latte, from Starbucks or whatever. And what you'll notice about matcha is that it has this very bright color, right? So the question becomes, well, what is that? And what has happened is that Japan has found ways of talking to this plant, and what they've learned is this mechanism called shade growing. And the shade growing mechanism is that they drape cloth over the tea plant, and the plant becomes starved for light. And so it starts overproducing chlorophyll, right? So the bright green color of matcha comes from this kind of attempt by the plant to really overproduce chlorophyll, right? Because of the light starved condition. And then in addition, what happens with ceremonial grade matcha, which is part of the tea ceremony, is that they basically harvest only the new green shoots, right? So they're hand selecting, right? But the purpose of this is that it is an indigenous plant medicine ritual called the tea ceremony chado, and the idea of it is that it allows for the transfer of the meditative condition of the host practitioner to the guest. So what's happening is the process of serving the tea is effectively a 4-hour ritual that involves sort of appropriate and careful dosing of the tea, as well as the equanimity and the meditative state of the host. So the host is basically communicating the equanimity and the state of their meditation practice to the recipient.
So, as I'm listening to you, there is a lot of similarity in Indian culture and Japanese culture. One of the similarity is that, we also, whenever we see something new, which is helpful to us, we also start worshipping that. We start considering that as Devata.
Amazing.
Right.
Wonderful.
So there are a lot of plants like people plant or tulsi, this plant, basil plant that we worship, right? Plus, even if let's say there is a stone which resembles something, or let's say there is a stone which has protected us, right? So we start worshipping that stone also.
Right? So I've noticed the same tendency, and to me, this is so exciting, and it's exciting to see, right? Because in my studies, I think there are 3 knowledge systems, and I think the Western knowledge system, which originates from the Minoan Crete culture in Greece, and then there's the Vedic knowledge system, right? And then there's the indigenous knowledge system, right? So the indigenous knowledge system actually doesn't really have a terrestrial origin, because anywhere on the planet you go, you'll find some amount of indigenous sort of knowledge system, right? Which is effectively that the Eastern and Western systems are effectively transcendental systems where the divinity resides outside of nature, right? And then the indigenous knowledge system is where the divinity resides within nature, right? So it's immanent, right? So those are transcendent and immanent, right? So East and West, right? But the thing that happened here, to my delight, is that Adi Shankaracharya's Advaita basically enabled not only aggregation of the sort of 5 major sort of deity groups, but also the kind of merger between the bottom up immanent
and
deity and the top down transcendent deity, right, into this kind of much more synthesized, right? So 2 knowledge systems are now compatible. They've been made compatible. So so I just spent some time down in Vrindavan, Mathura area, and obviously you see things like Yamunaji, right? So the river is the goddess, right? So like in a sense you have these bottom-up deities, and then you have more top-down deities, right? But that they coexist, right? And that's a great achievement, I think.
Yeah. So this is so interesting, because in India we have these 2 different streams. One is the Dvaitvad, and second is the Advaitvad.
Yes.
Right. So you already know about it, right? So Dvaitvad means there is a dualism.
Yes.
Right. God is different and we are different, right? So dualism. And then there is Advaitvad. Advaitvad means that they are same, right? And Adi Shankaracharya, as you mentioned, Adi Shankaracharya was the only one who kind of unified both of them. That there is no difference between this dualism and non-dualism, this Advaita. And as I was giving you the example that mango plant, mango tree, and mango fruit, they will appear to be different unless the fruit manifests itself in tree, then they will become the same, right? So till we are not evolved enough to understand, this dualism makes sense. But when we are evolved, then we become unified, then we become one. So there is no conflict between the 2. These 2 are not conflicting, these 2 are kind of collaborating or complementing each other. As you said that the top down meets the bottom up. So this is very interesting. And coming from the socio-political background, as I said, that this is where a lot of so-called left liberals, they have tried to find this and tried to create this as a fault line to divide people, right? You mentioned the 5 devatas, the 5 puja, 5 dev, right? So Panch Dev Puja, 5 Dev Puja.
Yes.
This was started by Adi Shankaracharya. And Panch Dev means we have sun god. So, and there are times, right? So in the morning at 5 a.m., Shankaracharya worshipped the Ganesh Devata, right? Then at 7, they take bath again and they worship the sun Devata, sun god. Then at 11, they worship the Vishnu Devata. Then at 4 in the evening, they worship the Shiva, right? And then at the 7, they worship the Shakti. And they said that, all others are in a way different forms of these Devatas. Like Krishna is a form of Vishnu, right? We call him Avatar, right? You know Avatar, right?
Sure.
They come to this earth in the form of Vishnu. Vishnu Bhagwan came to the earth in the form of Krishna. And Krishna was considered to be the Purna Avatar. So Vishnu Bhagwan has 10 avatars, but Krishna is considered the Purna Avatar. Purna means complete, right?
Nice.
So Vishnu Bhagwan came completely in this form, right? That's why you see a lot of things in Krishna. You will see almost everything, right? And I see that, you are also very close, you associate yourself with Krishna a lot, right?
I think to me, my surprise and delight has to do with this idea of expansive and all-embracing, right? So coming from Buddhism, right? Buddhism is world-renouncing, right? And the thing that's really intriguing to me about the sort of theology of Vaishnavism is that it's world-embracing, world-sustaining, world-affirming, right? So it necessarily so, right? As the function of Vishnu's sort of role as a sustainer of Dharma and as the continuer of all of activity, right? So to me, the thing that got me kind of excited is that when you think about it from a theological perspective, right? There's essentially an amazing mechanism in Bhagavad Gita, which is basically the fruit of the renouncing the fruit of action, right? So in a way, mechanism through which you can perform action, right? But by surrendering the fruit, right? So you have a form of renunciation, but it's not the renunciation of action.
Right.
Which isn't really very offered, right? Like if you're living in the world, it's hard to renounce.
So this is again, very different from the way it is projected by a lot of people, right? That a lot of people kind of, misinterpret and misteach Gita as renunciating everything.
Yes.
Right.
Sure.
So you are very likely saying that, it is not like renunciating everything. It is renunciating it is, leaving, not attaching yourself with the fruit. But it is not leaving your karma, right? In fact, if anything, they teach you to be more associated with the karma. They teach you to do more karma. They don't teach you, Bhagavad Gita doesn't teach you to don't do karma, right? They teach you more to do karma.
Yes, in fact, the sort of entire principle of karma yoga is, that's really the production of action, right? And, the thing and it seems clear that Arjuna was likely a man of action. So, so in a sense, that type of yoga speaks to him as a character. So,
right. So again, coming back to Japan, because, in India, we see Japan, and I'm not sure whether this is correct or not, but in India, a lot of us Indians really respect Japan, right?
That's very
one reason for respecting Japan is the kind of discipline that they have. Second reason of respecting Japan is that the kind of patriotism that they have for their country, that, they are super patriotic. We most of the Indians don't see China the same way, and between China and India, I'm talking about the common people, that you will find some kind of hostility. But we respect Japanese people, right? So a lot of people in India have neither gone to China nor gone to Japan, right? But we have read the stories of Shivaji Bose. We have read all of these, right? So in India, we people see Japanese in a very respectful way.
I think.
Right? So that's why I wanted to understand Japan from the spiritual point of view.
Yes.
That, when you say Buddhism, so did Japan accept the Buddhism because Buddhism was coming to Japan not from India but from China?
Yes.
So how did Japan initially reacted to this Buddhism which is coming from China?
Yeah. So the thing that's fascinating becomes that Buddhism as a spiritual system is effectively a non-proselytizing system, right? So so you were talking about how Buddhism was received in Japan. So really, to me, the important thing to understand is the preservation of Shintoism. So in a sense, Buddhism was allowed to overlay Shintoism, but not to eliminate. So in a sense, it's not an either or, it's a both and, right? So that's a pretty exciting construct, right? And I think that one way of looking at this concept of Buddha is that it's effectively a title, right? It's a title that accrues to someone who has achieved some realization, right? And so the thing that's intriguing is that you could look at Buddhism from the bottom up, like you could really look at it from that perspective, right? So in a sense, when you look at the idea of the meditative attention, you can just simply apply that to the worship of nature. So that's part of what you can do.
So what is it that that brought you from that Buddhism to Sanatan Dharma, if I can call it?
Yes, of course. So to me, the thing that is super important about that transition is that, you know, as someone who is a householder, it's very difficult to renounce action, right? So in a sense, I didn't have sort of a way of sustaining my life, right? So in terms of the spiritual base, right, you know, Buddhism has a strong way of renouncing action, but when you look at the original story of Shakyamuni Buddha, right, he left his kingdom, you know, he left his family.
Which Buddha? Which Buddha?
Shakyamuni.
Shakyamuni.
Original. Yeah, Shakyamuni.
Okay. Can you tell us about the story of this Shakyamuni Buddha? Because maybe it is similar to the Siddhartha Gautam Buddha.
It's the same Buddha.
It's the same
Buddha. Yeah, it's the same Buddha, which is basically, you know, he's the Muni from the Shakya clan. But like, you know, this was a title conferred after the prince left the kingdom, right? And he left his son and family and, you know, kingdom and everything else, right? So in a sense, the beginning of the story of Siddhartha is the story of the renunciation of normal life, of normal household life, right? So I guess what I'm trying to say is that, you know, I was looking for solutions that were more world affirming, you know, and to me the thing that, so actually my first read was I started studying, so I went from meditation, so I kind of, when my father passed away, I stopped being able to do regular zazen meditation, seated meditation, for whatever reason. Like I just wasn't able to continue. And that phrase of not being able to continue is, you know, that already gives you the punchline, right? Which is that, you know, if you turn to Krishna as a form of Vishnu, like that's the ultimate continuer, right? So like the inability to continue is a pretty important mental state, right? It like also when you look at Arjuna, at the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, he's unable to continue. Right. So like so the inability to continue is actually a common human experience. Actually, if you go to the ancient Greece, what you'll find is the Homer and the Iliad, and in that tradition, there's also a soldier who is unable to fight. So it's a very, very interesting condition that humans get into, right? But like to me, in that kind of frozen condition, one of the places I turned to was actually asana yoga, and one of the
Ashtanga yoga.
Some Ashtanga, and then, you know, some kind of more Western style, you know. So just, but to me, the thing that was profound was that I was able to reach similar mental states, but while in movement.
Was there some guru of yours? No,
just, and the thing that was interesting was it was largely self-guided, right? I was doing like Western yoga, which is sort of has some amount of spiritual element, but it's really far from like, you know.
So actually what happens is that Western yoga actually starts from in between, right? Like I said that, you know, yoga has 7 stages, right? The first stage is yam, then niyam, then asana, then pranayam, then pratyahar, dharana, dhyan, and the last stage is samadhi.
That's right.
Right. So most of the Western yoga, I'm not generalizing it for everyone, but most of the Western yoga, and why just Western yoga? Even in India, most of the people who started yoga, they start from asana, because that asana gives you the physical energy, right? So asana gives you the physical energy without having without going through the discipline of yam and niyam. So first 2 steps, first 2 layers, yam and niyam, they are essentially the discipline to attain the third, to go to the third level, which is the asana and the pranayam, right? So that's what is there. One more thing that I wanted to point out is that, you know, Siddhartha Gautam Buddha.
Yes.
You know, in Purans, so I'm telling you about the Indian Puranas.
Yes.
Right? So in Indian Purans, Vishnu Bhagwan has 10 avatars.
Yes.
And one of the avatar of Vishnu is Buddha avatar.
Yeah, and one of the exciting things about this theology, right, is that when you look at the Vishnu avatar process, right, it's effectively the it's top down actually, right? Which is that the avatar process is a process of moving from the formless avyaktam into form, right? So it becomes revealed, right? So basically, this is this top-down process, right? And as I was describing, the Buddha process is sort of bottom-up process, right? So in a way, this is a really wonderful way to kind of signify the meeting of the bottom-up and the top-down, right?
Yeah.
So it's a very amazing theology.
Yeah. So what I was talking about is that the Vishnu Avatar Buddha is different from Siddhartha Gautama Buddha. So Siddhartha Gautama Buddha is the last Buddha. So Buddha is a title.
Yes, it
right?
is. Yes.
So Buddha is a title,
Yes.
like Janak is a title. Right?
That's right.
So this title started with the first Buddha, and we consider the first Buddha as the avatar of Vishnu. And this title then continues, right? So second Buddha, third Buddha, fourth Buddha, like that.
Nice.
And the last Buddha was Siddhartha Gautama Buddha.
Very nice. Very nice.
So why Vishnu came as Buddha was very different from why Vishnu came in any other avatars. Because in most of the other avatars, Vishnu Bhagwan came to establish the dharma, right?
Yeah.
In Buddha avatar, Vishnu Bhagwan came to destabilize the adharma, right?
Nice.
So it's the same thing. You can say that both of them are synonymous, but one is that you are coming to establish the dharma, and second is that you are not coming to establish the dharma. You are focusing only on the dismantling of the adharma.
Yeah. So what eventually, to make the longer story short, like after kind of having this realization that you could attain this kind of meditative state in movement, right? Then I really wanted to find out more. So at that point, reading Patanjali Yoga Sutra, so really trying to understand, what the slokas mean. Right? What is the, Chitta Vritti Nirodha?
Chitta Vritti Nirodha.
Right. And then and also like Tada Drashtuhu Svarupe Vastanam, right? So this idea of like yoga being modal and being switching from identification with vrittis, right, to nirodha, right? So even this kind of like sort of modality construct gives you an idea of the position of yoga, right? Which is that it's a fairly everyday thing, right? Which is you're either identify with vrittis or you're in yoga. Those are the options, right? And at any given time you're going back and forth, right? But that the deeper root kind of, as you described in, Patanjali Ashtanga, right? Like it's, dhyana, dharana, samadhi, right? And then as you go through kind of the Vibhutipada, you keep going deeper, right? You start understanding that, there's attainment of samyama and siddhis, right? And then as you get further, there's sort of the final stage of Nirbija Samadhi, right? So it's very exciting, right? Like very exciting work. But the thing that became really intriguing was Ishvara Pranidhana.
Ishvara
Pranidhana, which Patanjali invokes, right? This is a really crazy thing because as a Buddhist, you're reading Patanjali, you're reading Sankhya philosophy, and you're kind of understanding it to be fairly Buddhistic, right? That there's a lot of Buddhistic elements to Patanjali Yoga, right? Very there's an eightfold path in Buddhism as well as an eightfold path in Ashtanga, right? So like basically, the echoes of Buddhism are there. But all of a sudden, Ishvara Pranidhana, all of a sudden, and so when you start to look at Ishvara in Yoga Sutra, right? Ishvara is the original teacher, right? So it's the teacher of the ancients, right? So you're looking at this and you're like, what is Ishvara, right? Then Ishvara, so it describes what it is, right? Ishvara is not subject to time. Like it's very interesting. It points to something, right? And so at that point, you really have to further your studies and you have to kind of try to understand what is Ishvara and what is it doing inside of what appears to be a non-theistic text. Appears to be, I say, right? But all of a sudden it's like, okay, you can read Patanjali as non-theistic, right? But then all of a sudden, what's Ishvara doing? Right? And so it's amazing. And by the way, there is a non-theistic reading of Patanjali, right? Which is, you can absolutely say Ishvara is effectively like a controller. And that it's a sort of a embodiment of timeless wisdom, right? So but to me, like you don't have to read it that way. And by the way, like Sankhya, there's a dualistic reading, but I think that there's also a non-dualistic reading of it in the sense that samadhi creates meditative absorption of the seer and the seen, right? And so with this meditative absorption, the two become one thing, right? So the idea of dualism can be erased within potentially. So there's a like a reading of potentially as well.
So in actually Hinduism there are 9 darshans, right? And 6 of them are Astik darshans, which believes in the Vedas and all those things. So there was a time, some 507 BCE, way back in 507 BCE, when at one time these 6 darshan, the followers of these 6 darshans and the followers of sampradayas, 5 sampradayas, they were in kind of conflict with each other, pseudo conflict with each other. That one was trying to say that I am superior to yours, and like Mimamsa darshan is there, Sankhya darshan is there, which talks about Purusha and Prakriti. So the follower of Sankhya darshan, they were saying that yours is not the right way, mine is the right way.
Yes.
Right. So they were in loggerheads, they were in conflict with each other.
For sure.
And then came Adi Shankaracharya, which said that all of these things are same.
Yes.
So what you are saying that they are talking about different things, but then they have a unifying factor. So that unifying factor was superimposed by Adi Shankaracharya, and he had shastrarts with all of them, the intellectuals, the topmost intellectuals of all the sects. And then he said that these sects has a meaning which is more transcendental, which is more unifying, which is more Advaita.
Yes.
So Advaita in a way is the final destination, right? And a lot of people can be coming from different paths. So yoga can be one path, but ultimately, when you attain a very super level of yoga, then you will reach the Advaita. Same goes for other darshans. Right?
Yeah. So one of the things that hit me like a ton of bricks actually is Bhagavad Gita, Dwadasho, Dvayaha, the chapter 12, yes,
chapter 12.
Which is focused on Bhakti Yoga, right?
Chapter 15 is focused on Bhakti Yoga, is it?
I guess it depends on the layout, but in mine, in mine it's 12, right?
Okay.
And so this but to me the thing that hits like a ton of bricks is if you're a Buddhist, right? Basically, Arjuna's opening question is about basically the worship of form or formless. Right. So obviously the Buddhist way is the worship of the formless. Right. So in essence, the initial question is who is more perfected in yoga, right? And then obviously, Krishna's answer is very profound, right? Because in a sense, he's saying that both ways lead to what he describes as kutastam achalam dhruvam, which is this
kutastam achalam dhruvam.
Yes, exactly. Which is the destination, right? So in a sense, and so the thing that's exciting about that is that as a Buddhist, you do see that there are equal paths, right? So to me, like but also unequal, right? Which is that he describes the path of the formless for those who are embodied within form, to be dukkham, right? So so that he's like, they both attain the same location, but that one's harder, right? It's hard.
So when you say Buddhism, right?
Yes.
Because when you say Buddhism, I'm just asking this question that how much of what you say Buddhism is coming from Shintoism, and how much is coming from actual Buddhism?
Well, so to me,
because these two appears to be different, right? So from that angle, I'm asking.
They are different. I mean, I would say that my study of Buddhism is sincere. So I do think that Buddhism is something that can be studied, reasonably directly, right? Which is that there's quite a lot of available source text in the Pali Canon, and you can access the Pali, so you can access the original words, and and you can contemplate its meanings. I do think that one of the strange things about the direct study of Buddhism, as with the direct study of any ancient texts, is very subject to mistranslation.
Right.
I have my own reading of Buddhism, where I think that the idea of, because really like the beginning of the first of the Four Noble Truths is basically Sakka Dukkha or Satya Dukkha, depending on Sanskrit or Pali. And Satya Dukkha is basically mistranslated in the West. So in the US, the most common translation of dukkha is suffering, right? That's the most common translation, right?
And how do you translate it?
I think it's a mistake. And I think dukkha is not translatable. I'll give you an example.
Right.
So here's a wonderful example. There were a bunch of British Orientalists who were studying Hinduism, right? So I was reading one of these books, and one of the funny things that the translator was doing is they didn't have a word for yoga being yoga. So basically, every time the translator would hit the word yoga, he would say integrated. So he would say that. So whenever he hit the word yogi, he would say the integrated man. And whenever he would see the word yoga, he would be like integration.
That's right.
Fascinating, right? It's fascinating because now the word for yoga is yoga, right? So to me, I think that's appropriate. Like I think in the West, the word for dukkha should be dukkha, right? It's just people don't have enough space in their brains to contain new words. But the reason why I think it's a mistake is that when you look at this original idea of du and ka, right? It's the space, right? And when you dukkha, you can actually put the axle in the wrong place, right? And then the whole thing, the cart is going down the road in this bad way, right? It's a bad way. And so one way to kind of maybe fix it is kind of this idea of like misalignment. But I also think that all forms of problems with the wheel of karma can be attributed to dukkha. So I'll give you an example, right? Another one is friction, right? So if you take the wheel and you just throw sand and gravel into the axle, right, then eventually the wheel will grind it. Misalignment. And then of manifest reality. Fascinating about production,
Mhm.
right? So
Mantras.
Japa, yeah, mantras,
Mantra and japa.
yeah. What happens once you kind of get involved is that you realize that there are elements that are, this is goes back to Patanjali, right? Which is that these are bija samadhis, right? They're all, so for example, something like mantra is basically samadhi using, mantra as bija, right? So you basically, and you can even have bija mantra, right? So like, but the point is that it has the gunas, right? Like it's manifest, right? So so for me, like, I'll tell you something strange, right? Which is that I find that my kind of nature is slightly tamasic, right? So one of the things I found that things like japa is useful to kind of get my engine going in the morning.
Okay.
And I find that there's different modes, right? So like one of the modes could be something like Hanuman Chalisa, right? So that's a mode, and it's a mode where the engine starts to rev. I find that that's very rhythmic for me.
Right.
It's very beautifully rhythmic. And
so you chant Hanuman Chalisa?
I do, not every day.
Okay.
One of the things I do that's actually really interesting that flips over to the secular side is I'll do rhythmic exercise.
Right.
For example, I'll do a treadmill, incline treadmill, and then I'll put secular music on, and then I'll basically put the music onto an infinite loop, and then I'll just do that. I'll walk rhythmically uphill for like, for like an hour, right? Great. And the thing that happens is that weirdly, this kind of secular practice has some of the effects of like a japa practice. Like it echoes throughout your day, and it has a.
So let me tell you two things, right? So
yes.
One of the things is that in India,
yes,
we used to have song for every occasion, right?
Nice.
So if a farmer is cutting the crop, harvesting the crop, then there is a music to that, right? So he's singing that song.
Oh, that's nice.
Right? When a lady is cooking the food, at that time also, you have a song for that. And this is across India, in their local languages. Like, the local language of North India is different from local language of South India, which is different from local language of Northeast, right? But across India, across the country, you will find this music being integral part of all the occasions.
Nice.
Right? So even when a person dies, and when we are carrying the body of the person to the shamshan, to the graveyard, at that time also we are singing. Nice. Right? So we are doing this naam jap, Ram Naam Satya Hai, type like this, right? Yeah. So when you say that, you have this music rhythming with the action, right? So it came to my mind that, we used to have this song for every occasion, and the song for every occasion was different, right? And there was a second thing which I forgot. I'm sorry, what were you saying? I just missed that.
Well, so what I find in the morning is I find that this kind of rhythmic practices are almost ways of getting the engine.
Yeah. One more thing.
Of course.
So this thing was that in India, we used to have this own calendar of India, right? And these practices are also incorporated in the calendar.
Nice.
Like right now, the Indian month is Kartik month.
Yes.
Right? And in this Kartik month, everybody, at least in the previous generation, what people used to do is that they used to wake up really early in the morning in the Brahma Muhurat, and they used to take bath in an open area, open pond or river.
Nice.
Right? And this is considered to be very spiritual thing. So everybody in the Kartik month used to do this. Like we have these 4 months where no marriage happens, right? Wow. No festival happens, because these 4 months are not considered to be good for your digestive system.
Nice.
Right? So in those 4 months, people used to be more spiritual, right? A lot of sannyasis used to have meal just once a day, not 4 times a day.
Yeah.
Right? So it was incorporated so much in the calendar that, for every month we have this, for every day we used to have this. Like in every month we have 2 Ekadashis, 11th date.
Nice.
Right? So we go by the moon calendar, right? So 15 days of waxing of moon and 15 days of waning of moon. So in those 15 days, there will one date which is 11th, right? So in 1 month, there are 2 Ekadashis, 2 11th date.
Yeah.
On 11th date, we don't eat rice.
Yeah, that's
Right.
it's very nice actually. I've been also experimenting with fasting. You know, and one of the things that's really interesting that I found is that when the body enters ketosis, maybe second day of water fasting, like the mind achieves stability. So you really get much less kind of agitating thoughts. Like it's much more still.
Yeah, fasting is a completely different book, right? So fasting is a completely different vertical. But what I'm saying is that we don't have fast on 11. A lot of people have fast also, but a lot of people don't eat rice on that day.
Yeah.
Right. And you know, I was talking about the Shastrarth of Shankaracharya with Ubhay Bharti, the wife of Mandan Mishra.
Yeah.
So Shankaracharya was a sannyasi, and Ubhay Bharti. So Shankaracharya defeated the husband of Ubhay Bharti, Mandan Mishra, in the debate.
Yes.
And then Ubhay Bharti said that, you know, his defeat is not complete unless you defeat me also, because I am his half, right?
Yes.
Because, you know, wife is half of the husband. So Shankaracharya had debate with Ubhay Bharti, and Ubhay Bharti asked all kind of questions. Late at the end, she started asking questions about the sexuality. Now Shankaracharya was a sannyasi,
Wow.
right? So sannyasi is not supposed to, you know,
He doesn't know.
Right? He doesn't know. He was not supposed to know. So, anyways, you know, I'm not, you know, long story short, what I'm trying to say is that the kind of question that Ubhay Bharti asked was that in which part of the body calm stays during which phase of the moon, right? So after 1 month, Shankaracharya came back and then he answered these questions.
Nice.
So during the waxing of the moon, on the first day, sexuality remains here. On the second day, sexuality remains here, right? So it was up to this microscopic level that, you know, if you want to stimulate someone, for husband and wife, these two will be different. And it will be different on different days of the waxing and waning of the moon, right?
Nice.
So it was so elaborate and so distinct, and so is the Jyotish, right? So where we are studying the cosmos and all that.
Yeah.
Right. I really, right. So normally I don't open up that much, but since, you know, you are at a very different level, so from me, these things are coming naturally.
Oh, it's fascinating.
So tell me about your journey, right? You have come to India and you have been to Vrindavan, you have been to Mathura. Which all places have you been and what was it all like?
Yeah, you know, it's been pretty fascinating because there's all kinds of temples, of course, right? And, you know, it's wonderful because you can really access all the different stages. Obviously, you know, you have to go to Kurukshetra to understand the later stages, right? And
so I promise you that, you know, next time you come, I'll take you to Kurukshetra, I'll take you to Jagannath Puri.
Oh, that's amazing. I definitely am excited about that. I think Jagannath Puri is definitely a destination for me. You know, but I think that accessing Janmabhoomi, right, at birth, and then obviously, you know, going to Gokul, understanding kind of the, you know, the young pastimes, you know, the home of Yashoda, like, you know, just lovely touch points, you know, the location of Rasalila, you know, so just so many kind of touch points on the journey. And in fact, the location of the wedding between, you know, Krishna and Radha, so like, you know, where Brahma married the two of them. So that was a very interesting site, you know, and that site actually got the nickname of Gupta Vrindavan, which is so it's sort of kind of a hidden treasure. So, you know, this is a very interesting thing because that temple on the grounds actually hosts a number of sannyasi babas who are all like basically devoted full-time to bhakti yoga. So, you know.
So did you feel the energy or, you know, anything?
Absolutely. You know, and in many different ways, in many different locations, right? So, you know, it's fascinating. And, you know, within this, all of these sort of, you know, sannyasi babas, like they have each their own understanding of bhakti yoga, but they're all immersed in different practices, like, you know, practices like Harinam or, many different practices. So, it's fascinating to see all of the different expressions of the practice.
Okay. So, what is one or two takeaways from this journey if you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, this one's very just like kinesthetic and postural, which is that, I think the full prostration, like the Danda Pranam, is a meditation. It's a yogasana, and it's one that they don't teach, right? Because in a sense, like it has a spiritual intent, and it doesn't really have an athletic intent, right? Like if you're just doing full prostration, like it's not something that they teach at my local Western yoga class. Right?
So when we were young,
yes,
it was a very common practice that whenever a sannyasi come, we used to do this dandavat pranam.
Yeah.
Dandavat pranam means that you lay down completely with your hands folded. Even today when Shankaracharya ji goes, Shankaracharya ji is almost always on travel. So most of the people does this dandavat pranam.
Yeah.
In Mathura, there is one parikrama also where you walk, right? And when you are walking, so some people are just walking and doing this parikrama. Some people are doing this parikrama by doing the Dandavat Pranam.
This is like 21 kilometers or something.
Yeah, 21 kilometers.
Yes. We saw that. We saw all of those.
So this is Saat Kosi Parikrama, right? 7 course. Amazing. So one course translates to roughly 2.5 or 2.5 kilometers. So 21 kilometers it will come up to. So a lot of people does this parikrama by doing the Dandavat Pranam.
Yeah.
So,
head to foot,
head to foot,
yes.
and then they put a stone here, then from here they do the head to foot
again.
again.
Or like a Coke bottle or anything. Like it's amazing to see everyone like they're going and going. It's so profound, But this posture is really quite amazing. And the thing that I found amazing about it is that most of the meditation postures that I've been taught, right, traditional asana, padmasana, ardha padmasana, these kinds of things, sukhasana, they're all effectively balancing poses, right? Because they're upright, right? And it's absolutely lovely. Like it's lovely because you're balancing kind of like the tamasic and the rajasic, and so there's a lot of balancing going on. There's a lot of balancing going on. But to me, the thing that is so fascinating is when you read Bhagavad Gita Bhakti Yoga. The tail end of this book has to do with becoming Priya, right?
Priya to Bhagwan.
Yes, which is so beautiful because the thing this is the secret. This is the secret, I'll tell it to you. The secret is this. The secret is that I mentioned that when I'm meditating with the EEG headset, right? The thing that happens is that this biofeedback device actually it makes the sound of a tropical forest, right? And when it's picking up alpha waves, it's picking up like your perfect meditative, brain, right? It becomes quiet, and then the birds start chirping. So you have the still experience, and then when you're falling out, it starts making rain showers. You can hear it. You can hear it, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm telling you is that this is not being. This is doing. This is doing, right? Like you're doing something, right? You're trying to make the birds chirp, right? So that, but the thing that's so fascinating to me is that boundary, right? Because ultimately, the spiritual meditation is a meditation of being, right? It's being and not doing, right? And here's the amazing thing is that for me, like when I first understood Bhakti Yoga and the practices of Bhakti Yoga, like when I think about devotion, I'm thinking about the devotion of the devotee towards, their Lord and Master and this kind of feeling, right? But the thing that's a stunning reversal is about becoming Priya. Because the thing that's astonishing about becoming Priya is effectively that it speaks directly to what is said in other parts of Bhagavad Gita, which is you are not the doer, right? And what does that mean, right? The thing that's fascinating is when you're meditating, you're not the doer of the meditation. And when you become Priya, you're not even the devotee. Like Krishna's the devotee. Like in a sense, Krishna you become beloved of him, right? So the trick is that as soon as that happens, it's being. So Bhakti Yoga becomes being, where you're just being, and the doing is achieved by Krishna. Krishna is the achiever. You're not the achiever. You're just being, right? And so this inversion is profound. And one way to symbolize the inversion is through this Dandavat Pranam, right?
Wow.
Because it's the most effortless asana, right? So in a sense, like you're not producing any effort. You're completely prone, like nothing, right? Pure being, because it's all taken care of. It's by grace, right? It's not effortful, right? So the posture is not effortful, right? It's fully surrendered, but it's not effortful. Like it's it's taken care of, right? So that's the twist, I think.
So no one has talked about Dandavat Pranam this way.
I mean, it's all experiential. Like this stuff that I'm doing is experiential, right? So in a sense, it's not part of a tradition.
No, but it is very different also, Miko. That a lot of people when they do certain things, they try to do a thing to get something, right? So if I'm doing exercise, I'm doing it to get a good body,
Yes.
right? When you say that I'm doing this just to become priya to Bhagwan.
Yes,
right?
Sure.
It means that you don't want anything materialistic out of it.
Yes.
Right? So this is a very very nice. It is not like transactional something which is happening. Right?
Well, yeah. I mean, the fruit of the action is sort of
right.
It belongs to Bhagwan, right?
Right. So this is really the core, right? So I'm glad that you have touched the essence of Bhagavad Gita almost.
That's
according
terrific.
to me, right? So I'm very, you have reached the very core of it, right? So maybe because as I believe in cyclic birth, so maybe you have done a lot of sadhana in the previous birth, because this kind of knowledge, especially where you are staying in Americas and coming from that kind of background, technological background, it is very difficult to get to this kind of level in just one birth. Yeah, that kind of spiritual level in this birth, right?
That's terrific.
Very, very interesting.
But it's very much first principles, and it's very much devotion to trying to understand the text itself, right? Because the thing that's amazing is if you just kind of like take people's word, or you just follow what other people are doing or saying, right? Like you can get kind of wrong ideas, right? You can definitely get wrong ideas. Because to me, for example, like when you really look at the manifestation of the practices of Bhakti Yoga, like there are tremendous contributors, right? Like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's bringing kind of the Bhakti Kirtan and bringing like Harinam, but when you study it from the perspective of Gita, right? This is kind of a technology, right? Like in a sense, like you're praising, you're celebrating, right? But you're still doing, right? Like that's still performance of action. Now, obviously, you can perform the action and surrender the fruit, which is beautiful, right? So that's also an appropriate understanding. But coming from the meditative tradition of Buddhism, right? To me, the important balance point is the balance point between the unmanifest and the manifest. And the unmanifest can be perfect. Right? Because it's only the manifest that's imperfect, right? By, Buddha's First Noble Truth.
Right. So, this role reversal that you are talking about is very profound. That, you are doing and he is being.
Yes.
After a certain time, after a state, you become the being because you become the priya of Bhagavan and he become the doer for you.
Yes.
Right? So, this transaction is actually Advaita. Because in Advaita, there is no difference between the two after a certain point, right?
Yes.
So you are moving from this dualism to this Advaita, right? So
And in a way, like that is the genius of the structure of the Gita, right? Because the genius of the structure is when we study the idea of bhakti, you're looking at really specifically Arjuna and Krishna. Like you're looking specifically at that relationship, and you're looking at kind of how does that work? What are the energetic dynamics of it? And the thing that's amazing is that if you kind of zoom back and you like
and it's the war ground, right? So
it's
a battleground.
It's astonishing, yeah. And obviously it's very serious. It's a very serious. So when we talk about performance of action, like there's definitely a seriousness to it. And it's kind of amazing the scope, right? Because obviously you have this amazing kind of baby Krishna, and you have all these wonderful pastimes and this joy.
So Krishna came in the full form. Vishnu came in the full form.
Yeah, you get the whole spectrum, right? But obviously in Kurukshetra, it's a much more serious Krishna, right?
Yeah.
He's telling.
So Ved Vyasji actually wrote Mahabharata. Ved Vyasji.
Yeah.
And Ved Vyasji also did the what do you call this? The Sambhashan of Vedas. So earlier Vedas compilation of Vedas, right? So Vedas was a unified book, one unified book. But it was very difficult to read that, and at that time people were finding it really challenging to read the entire Veda. So Ved Vyasji divided the Vedas in 4 parts, right? So in a way he know the essence of Vedas, right? And he put that essence in Bhagavad Gita, right? So Bhagavad Gita is the summarization of all the Indian texts, if you can say so. Right?
Yeah, it's wonderful.
So that's why this Bhagavad Gita has become so much popular also, right? What are your plans for the future? I'm just talking from the spiritual angle, and then maybe we can talk about the technological angle.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of blend them, right? I can kind of blend them because to me, the thing that is so important is that the deal.
So maybe before coming to this question, if you can give a little bit of technical background, because you are trying to blend spirituality with technology, as far as I understand.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to me, like technology. So the thing that's funny in Japan is that Japan holds a view of nature that's similar to the Patanjali and Sankhya view, right? Which is that anything that can be seen is nature. Right. So if you go to Japan, you'll see like humanoid robots, or you'll see like the Wii motion controller, or you'll see a lot of the hybrid car engine. You'll see a lot of technologies that kind of synthesize humans with nature, and it's nature, with machines, and it's all mixable, right? In the Japanese mind, it's not separate. It's not separate.
So whenever we buy a machine, we do a puja of that machine.
That's very sweet.
Right.
That's very sweet.
So when, as you said that we worship everything. You worship everything in Japan. So we also whenever we buy a laptop or a machine or a car or something, the first thing that we do is that we worship that machine.
That's lovely. Right? That's very lovely.
Now this is very counterintuitive from a very modern point of view.
For sure.
This is mechanics, right? Yeah. This doesn't have Atma or the consciousness. So why are you worshipping it? But this worshipping is a way of blending, or worshipping is a way of gelling. When we were very young, every time we used to get a new copy to write, or a diary to write, the first thing that we used to do is we used to write those spiritual symbols Om on the front page of that copy.
Nice.
Right?
Nice.
So we worship, study in terms of Vidya, Devi, right? So Vidya is also a goddess. Saraswati, Devi Saraswati is also a goddess.
Nice. Yeah.
Similarly, money is also goddess, economics. So we worship Lakshmi. So Lakshmi is a form of economics, right? So this is, sorry I interrupted you, but I just wanted to say that, in Japan, the way you said that, we worship nature, everything. Here also we have a devata for almost everything.
Yeah. So in terms of kind of how I see things, right? So in terms of my background, like I did study in graduate school. I went to Yale University to study neuroscience, and in 1990 I was building my first error back propagation networks, based on like Rumelhart and Hinton, the 86 paper, right, back propagation paper, and to me this was the birth of modern machine learning, right, and obviously the 2 biggest papers to come after that in machine learning were really, if you look at this concept of a GPT, right? The 2 biggest papers were pre-training, right? So the idea that, again, was kind of credited to Jeff Hinton, was this idea of pre-training. And then I think that the next thing that was super profound that happened was the transformer paper. So Ashish Vishwani, transformer. The title of which is very profound, by the way. The title of the paper is "Attention is All You Need." Right. So those 3 papers basically define machine learning, right? Because backpropagation of error is basically how does the machine know?
So how did you get introduced to these papers while you were doing neuroscience?
Yeah. So I was doing computational neuroscience. So we were very much interested in abstract neural networks, so the Hopfield networks, the Hebbian synapse, these types of things, right? So, in studying and modeling the brain abstractly, you start to kind of hit these ideas of computation, right? And obviously when you start doing pre-training, you start to add hidden layers, and you kind of get these much bigger models, because the models we were working with, my first neural network model was 33 parameters, right? Today we're talking about 33 billion or 70 billion or 405 billion, even trillions of parameters, right? So like it's really gotten ridiculously large, right? But I would say that all of this has to do with the dimensionalization of kind of a parametric curve fitting, right? So as you add more hidden layers and add more compute, add more data, right? Eventually these things start to model things like language, right? So they model language, they model things very, very, at a very nuanced level, a very powerful level. So the question becomes kind of, what am I doing with all of these different types of technologies, right? Because I'm using the term technologies to include, even everything like Harinam is technology, right? Something like Zazen meditation is technology, because it has to do with how we govern the manifest. It's procedures to tame and, massage and control like all of Vyaktam, what appears, right? So to me, when we think about all of these technologies, the question becomes, kind of in service of what, right? So the thing that becomes really interesting is the core edict in Bhagavad Gita is basically you perform action, surrender the fruit of action. And the way I like to describe is that it's the deal that gets done in the Gita, which is the deal that gets done is what I call, you shoot, I'll drive. Right. So the speaker of this deal is Krishna himself, right? Which is obviously the charioteer drives, right? And what is the point is that humans are the ones who shoot, right? So Arjuna must shoot the bow, right? And if he does the performance of that, then and only then will the chariot go. Right. That's the deal, right? Otherwise, we're going to sit in this ditch as long as it takes. Between the two armies, you're just going to sit here. You can cry as long as you like, but but this chariot's going nowhere until you shoot. That's it. That's all there is, right? So, what does that mean? What it means is that a lot of the doing of meditation has to do with the performance of action, right? And it has to do with Kutasam Achalam Dhruvam, right? Which is, so this Achalam concept is like this unshakable quality. Because what you want, in Mahabharata, during the training, there's this scene where Arjuna is looking at a stuffed parrot in a tree and Drona is saying, what do you see, right? And Arjuna, I only see an eye, right? It's like, shoot, right? That's the spirit, right? Because the spirit is this focus, right? So another idea becomes, like, if you think about yourself as like a hard drive, right? Not the solid state, the spinning disk, right? So imagine that the arrow is just the read-write head.
Okay.
And that's you, actually. Because the chariot is the disc and it's also the arm. And here's what I mean is that the chariot is driven where you go, right? And to me, the only thing you have to do is 1010. Like, that's all you have to do, right? And the arm will take care of the movement, and the disc will take care of the movement, all the movement, right? Because when you look at the, military training model of the Marines, it's move and shoot. Right. So it's like, so
it becomes a muscle memory.
You're only shoot.
Right.
Move is taken care of, right? And so what I mean is that if you imagine that your life work output is just 1001, 110, whatever it is, right? So that's you, right? So my point is that the doing part of meditation is the part of achieving durable and stable mental focus for the purpose of performing action, right? So if you can have like sustained single pointed attention to perform your work, it's a big improvement. That's the doing part. Because we're looking at the boundary between the unmanifest and manifest. Yeah. So within the manifest, right, the doing is helpful.
Yeah. So one of the things is that you can be meditative while doing the work, right?
Yes.
Right? And if you are fully concerned, fully focused, then you are in a state of meditation.
Yeah. So here's the beauty of it. The beauty of it is this, right? Which is that the other phrase that's inspiring me from Bhakti Yoga is Nitya Yukta Upasati. Yeah, and it's like Nitya is Nitya, right? So whether you're doing your work or whether you're sitting in meditation, right? It's kind of like...
And again, it's a non-translatable because Nitya will be translated to daily. Whereas it should be, in this context, it should be translated to every time.
Always.
All the time.
All the time. All the time.
Right?
Like whether
because the
you're-
literal meaning of nitya will get translated to daily. Daily means once a day,
That's
right?
a shame. That's a shame. That's a shame because as a Buddhist, when I read the word, right, like the most familiar version of that is actually anicca, right, which is anitya, right,
Okay.
which is impermanence, right. So the opposite of anitya is nitya, right. So nitya yukta upasate. It's like nitya
so you
yukta,
got it correct.
Nitya yukta. Yeah. So as a Buddhist, you read this and you're like, oh, okay, it's nitya yukta, right? Like, which to me is so important, right? Because then when you're in the performance of action or not the performance of action, and to me, like, this is so, like, it's beautiful as represented by the spirit of Arjuna, right? Because like when he wins Draupadi Swayamvar, he shoots through the hole to the eye of
looking
the fish.
downward.
Looking downward, the reflection, right? But but again, it's the eye.
Yeah.
Right. Again, it's like the perfect shot, right?
Right.
And in a sense, like that's who he is. Like, but that's focus, right? Like that's a perfect focus, right? So in a sense, like, you know, the idea of Nitya Yukta is that, you know, and the Upasate has the kind of echo of like Upanishad, right? Which but kind of literally sitting near the knee of the master, right? So like in a sense,
so this is the literal meaning of Upanishad.
Yeah, so you have to break it down so that you're there, right? Because you're always there, right? So even if you kind of are experiencing chaos or despair or whatever it is, like you're still there, right? That's Nitya. That's what.
So this is one of the questions that I have, that, you know, when you know, Guru has a lot of importance in all of this.
Yes.
Right? In all of this, Guru has a lot of importance. And in India, it is like, you know, once you find the right Guru, then he can take you everywhere.
Nice.
Right? Because Guru will be able to answer all your questions that are coming out of you, right? So unless Arjun finds Krishna,
yes,
you know, if Arjun did not find Krishna, he will not be able to go anywhere.
Yes.
He will not be able to fight.
Sure.
Right? So once he finds, he was able to do that. Right? So what technology does is, and you know, this is my question to you, is that what technology does is that it is trying to replace the Guru.
Ooh.
Physical Guru.
Very interesting.
Right.
Very interesting. Okay.
If you replace the physical Guru,
yes.
So technology has a centralized effect.
Yes.
Whereas according to me, you know, because I am into teaching also, learning is very decentralized.
Fair enough.
Right? And in one of the Upanishads, we have 29 different ways of imparting teaching. And it is said that, you know, the way you should teach depends not on the teacher. It should be according to the student. Right?
That's nice.
So a lot of students will get motivated by, you know, different student will get motivated by different things. Different student will have understanding of the same concept, but in a very different way.
Yes.
Right? So how do you see this gelling of AI, or this, you know, this overlapping or encroaching of AI in the domain of spirituality?
Yeah, so I think one of the use cases that I've had is studying ancient texts directly through things.
So this is like the best use, right? So you are not replacing that, right? So what you are doing is you are using technology.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. So, because the thing that's really great, and you know, I specifically am calling out ChatGPT because if you say something like,
maybe if you can tell for our audience that, you know, how are you using this ChatGPT for, you know, I really like that.
Yeah. So to me, for example, like, you know, some of these insights are first principles direct insights, just as a function of closely studying the text itself, right? Because, you know, the reason I'm calling out ChatGPT is that ChatGPT has all of Bhagavad Gita in original Sanskrit, all slokas, right? And it's there, it's all there, right? So the beauty of it becomes that instead of just being reliant on some translator who's likely doing something in their own mind, not the original intent, right? So if you study it this way, you can even take a word and you can start seeing where else the word appears, you know, not just in Gita, but in other texts, right? Because then you can start to understand things like, even things like cultural resonance, where you're basically like, oh, this word for sure doesn't mean what what this translator thinks it means, right? Because you know, because when the thing that's really profound is that, like, so one thing I said at a recent hackathon is I said that, like, there's only one machine language and many human languages. And what I mean by this is that like, let's say you have Python or C#, right? Like, Those are dialects.
That's a very nice statement, right?
Those are not languages.
Yeah,
Python and C# are not languages. Those are dialects.
I know that, right? So we have always been knowing that, but we have never seen that. There is only one machine language, and there are multiple higher languages.
Many human languages. Many human languages. And human languages are confusing, right? Because you can take it, like a Buddhist can take a word like dharma, right? Buddhist doesn't mean dharma when they say dharma. They mean something else. I promise you, right? And so that's crazy, right? It's crazy.
What does that mean? When a Buddhist say dharma, what does it mean?
So it has the connotation of law.
Okay.
Right, which is similar to the connotation, right? But it mostly has the connotation of things like teaching, like things like the Buddha Dharma, right? Which is a big, that's a big resonance, right? Which is the Buddha Dharma is the teaching, right? And specifically, right? So the resonance is different, right? It doesn't.
So it is more closer to religion than to dharma. Is it?
Well, yes, perhaps so. And some of the connotations as you get into things like Swadharma and you get into kind of these really much more dimensional.
Not just for dharma, a teacher has, Shikshak dharma, a student has Vidyarthi dharma, a husband has
right?
A wife has
absolutely. So when you get into kind of the cultural nuances of the terminology, you begin to understand that dharma is like encompassing nature and duty, and it's a huge word. It's a huge, powerful word, right? So I guess what I'm saying is that in natural languages, you can even have words that seem to be the same word, but for sure are not the same word. Right. And so that's where ChatGPT can come in very strongly. It can come in very strongly because you can, if you see, like previously I used a website called Bhaktivedanta Database, which has all of the source text, and you can do things like keyword search. So you can be like, oh, okay, what is this word? How is this word being used? Like Brahmaloka, like where else does this appear? Everywhere. Just show me everywhere, every single line where it shows, right? And then you can kind of compare them all and be like, I think I understand what this is, right? But the point I'm trying to make is that ChatGPT can even go a step further. So I feel like it's not just a keyword search,
right?
And I think the next step it becomes. I'm interested in vector databases, and I'm interested in the use of vector databases for.
So before coming to vector database, one of the things is that you have your own vivek, you have your own knowledge, right? You have your own mind, right? So when you are putting something in ChatGPT and it is giving you one interpretation, you are able to question that this doesn't seem right? Maybe let's see another opinion.
That's right.
So because you have your own vivek, you are able to use this tool. Essentially, it's a tool, right?
Yes.
So you are able to use this tool to the best of the ability, right? How do you see a situation when a person who doesn't have much of the vivek and he goes by just one tool and he digests, he accepts everything that the tool is providing? Then the tool will kind of dominate that person.
I think.
And this is the problem that I have with the centralization, right?
I think there's danger. There's definitely danger there, right? Because to me, like the grounding that's inherent in the use of the tool, the way I'm using it, is the grounding is the source text. Right. So if it's not coming from the source text, and if I can't understand how what's being claimed ties to the source text.
Plus, you are not taking it on the face value, right? Because you are using your own intelligence, right, on top of that.
Right? So I really want, but I just want, that's the confirmation I'm looking for. It's like, how closely does this cleave to the source text? And, and even the breakdown of individual words to word roots, right?
No, but
so
this is the best way of using the tool, that, in this case, even if you don't have a tool, you will be able to get the same knowledge. Maybe it will take more time. So what tool is doing it is speeding up the things. It is making you faster, right?
Much faster. It's profoundly fast, and it's able to span, just vast amounts of information. So it's a very powerful tool.
So you were talking about vector data.
So I'm excited because one of the things I've been playing with is retrieval augmented generation, right? Which is because the thing that's happened is that these language models have increasingly large context windows, right? But like the kind of average today context window is like 128,000 tokens, right? So to me, the thing that's fascinating is when you type a prompt in, you're not using this space. Like so in a sense, what's happening is that these things they're not sufficiently grounded, right? And the way you ground them, the thing that's wonderful becomes that the use of a vector database allows you to pull from a database things that have semantic similarity, right? And may be superficially appear to be different, but in the meaning, right? The semantic meaning is more similar. So then you can do semantic search that allows you to pack the context window, right? And then the queries will become very rich. Right?
So a lot of our audience may be non-technical. For them, maybe we can say that, if I search Apple, then Apple may mean the company that is Apple, the apple that may mean fruit that is Apple.
That's right.
So depending on the context, it should give you the right result.
Yes, and here's the beauty, right? Which is we talked about viveka or discernment, right? This capability, right? Because in a sense, like that is a property of like buddhi, right? Which is it's a knife. Right. It cuts, right? So it splits things. Two things that may appear to be alike, right? It's splitting the two things, right? So, for example, like.
So you are giving such an interesting example, because all of these examples, it appears to me as if I have heard these examples earlier, because these examples have appeared in the shastras, like buddhi is a knife.
Yeah, right? So, there you go. But I mean, viveka is discernment, right? So, and you take alike objects and you split them, right? So you see, no, these are not alike, right? And as going back to the beginning of the conversation, I was talking about Shintoism, right? Each unalike becomes potentially the chance for there to be a new god, right? So, for example, like Suntory is one of the most powerful spirits companies, whiskey companies in the world, based out of Japan. They own like Jim Beam. They own a bunch of brands in the US and around the world, right? And how did this happen? The reason it happened is because of Shintoism. Because when the Japanese encountered Scotch whiskey, they were not dismissive. They didn't look at Scotch whiskey and be like, oh, this is some kind of weird Scotland sake. And like, we already know what this is. Like, we already know how to make this stuff. Like, we know everything, right? As soon as it's discernible from sake, it's like this could be a new god. Like, we must know the spirit of this god because it's not the one of this other one. Like, for example, if you're studying haiku poetry, there's this concept called kigen. And kigen is seasonal words. And seasonal words are, like, let's say you say, oh, it's a spring breeze. Okay, it's a summer breeze, right? Those are two different words, right? And why are they so many different words? Because each one is a god, right? Each one is a different god. The spring breeze, summer breeze is like, you can't use. People have said Japanese is a primitive language because oyu is hot water and mizu is water. And so in India, they're not based on the same word, right? It's two different words. And so, but my point is that much like back propagation means machine learning, vectorization means machine discernment. Right. So we've given this new capability to the machine, which is stunning, right? It's stunning that this has happened, and in a sense, this concept of machine discernment is embedded in the concept of a language model, right? Which is effectively, when you look at a vector space, like today, for example, like ChatGPT, ADA embedding uses like 1,536 dimensions. It's a lot of dimensions, right? And what is a dimension? It's basically like, well, what's the difference between a dog and a cat, right? So it's when you ask a question like that, there's differences and similarities, right? Oh, they're both furry, and people like them as pets, and they both can fit inside a bread box, and depending, right? It could be a very big dog or whatever. But the point is that like the machine is trying to ascertain this using all these dimensions.
Differences can be contextual also.
All these dimensions. They're both mammals. Like it is bang, 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 bang. So it's similar, different. Right. So all of these kind of like things become multidimensionally vectorized. Right. But at the end of the day, like the machine knows every difference, every distance, right? So it absolutely is able to split these two concepts very clearly. So that's the kind of amazing powers that are occurring, right? So to me, the thing that's exciting about the use of these tools is once you have this kind of semantic vectorization of a knowledge space, right, like Vedic knowledge, right, then you can use it to further extract and refine and define and understand, right? And then you can kind of apply you can kind of pack the context window with enough context where you can do things like you can distill and recreate all of the key points of the debate. So for example, you could say...
so it can become a guru, because, guru is contextual. right? So guru teaches according to the student. So it can become a guru because it is teaching the same thing, but depending on the student, it will use a completely different example. It will use a completely different language. It will use completely different phrases because it will be contextual to the student.
And within the manifest, within Yektum, like the thing that's exciting is it can perform things like philosophical debate, right? So you can have a multi-agentic system, right? One of them represents Adi Shankara, and you can basically embody all of his writings and teachings, and then you can actually have him debate a different agent that's trained on a different knowledge system, right? So these knowledge systems can actually like actively debate each other within like a multi-agentic system, and you have the potential to even create new knowledge, right? Like for example, what right now, like, what's claimed is that the current level of language model approaches kind of graduate student level, right? Wow. But that the next level of advancement has to do with things like the O1 model, which uses kind of chain of thought, right? So as soon as you have chain of thought, and if you move that to multi-agentic, then you can actually have things like debates, and you can actually have potentially things like the generation of new knowledge, right? Because within a debate, you can actually have new arguments arise. And in fact, the goal is to have PhD level. And what PhD level means that it can actually solve unsolved math proofs. Conjectures, right? So some incredibly clever mathematician created a conjecture, which is basically like, I think this is so, but I can't prove it yet. Right? So if someone has a conjecture, one of these things is going to roll into town and solve it. Like one of these things is going to show up and be like, I think I know what your proof is. It's here. I've solved it for you. And like there are many unsolved conjectures in mathematics, and these guys are going to roll in and start solving them, which is amazing.
Right, great.
And that would be like a superhuman moment.
So it's it has psychological implications. It has mathematical implications. It has sociological implications, right? So lot of these things, right? So I'm sure that I am super excited about the things that you have said, and I really like this conversation. Anything that you want to add?
I mean, I want to say this, right? Which is, I don't want to be blind to the potentially adverse consequences of this technology. I mean, I'll give you an example from the literature, from the spiritual literature, right? Which is, when you look at one of the insights that came out of the Transformers paper, attention is all you need, is they were able to create multiple attention heads, right? So if you look at something like Llama, it has 64 attention heads, right? Which means that it can pay attention to 64 things at the same time. Right. Now, if you go back into...
So Ravana has 10 heads.
I'm saying the same. Like, that's exactly where I was going, right? Which is that you could be creating a digital Ravana, right? And obviously he was a Tapasvi with great spiritual potential and effort, right? But obviously at some point, he kind of lost the way, right? Like at some point he became so desperate that the only thing left to do is like kidnap Sita or whatever, right? So what I'm saying is I don't want to be naive about the emergence of these things, right? Because what's happening.
So what Ravana did was that, because a lot of people will not know this, because a lot of people consider Ravana as doing only one evil, which is kidnapping the Sita.
Pretty bad though.
But pretty bad. But it was not that bad as if we are burning it even after so many years, thousands of years. But one of the things that he was doing was that he was not allowing others to do the yajna. He had this control over the entire Dandakvan till Madhya Pradesh. Right. So all of these, these were forest areas, right? So all this entire land was kind of captured by Ravana.
Yeah.
And he was not allowing people to do yajna. He was throwing, bones in the yajna. He was killing the people. So this entire area was kind of, tortured, was kind of
spiritually deadlocked.
So this is a fight between Devasur Sangram is going on, right? So this entire area was kind of deprived of so many spiritual things by Ravana, and that's why Bhagwan Ram took this path, and he killed all the asuras, and then he went to Khardusan, he killed the Khardusan, and then at the end he killed the Ravana.
So what I want to say is this. What I want to close on is that.
But you're right. So
there's two things that
technology can become Ravana.
Yes, there's two things that matter. There's two things that matter. I think one of the things that matter has to do with abundant energy. Like if we have abundant energy, that makes all the difference, right? And that will govern whether we have a chance at building a more utopian future. If we don't have abundant, clean energy, then I think we're pretty much in a bad spot. But if we do have it, if we have that, then the next step becomes, what are the fitness functions that we apply to our reinforcement learning, right? Because essentially, like, you can ask yourself this question as a citizen, is what do we teach our children? What are we teaching our children, right? You can ask that question. And the reason that question is meaningful is if you teach your children horrible things, then they'll become more horrible and the world will become a horrible place, right? What are we teaching our AIs, right? So when you look at reinforcement learning is just good dog, bad dog, right? So if you punish the machine for doing good things and you reward it for doing bad things, then it will do bad things. And obviously when I say bad things, even things as simple as just serving a corporate master by ignoring all other considerations, ignore environmental consideration, ignore labor consideration, ignore human consideration, ignore any consideration other than pure greed, that's maybe not the best possible thing to teach this machine, right? So to me, I think the two gating factors of the future are abundant or scarce energy, right? And then the other gating factor is what we decide to teach the machines, because the machines will be faster than us. The machines will achieve superhuman capability, right? And so
when do you see that machine achieving superhuman capability?
It already has, right?
No, it already has in terms of.
Here's what I mean by
it already has in terms of mathematical and all those computations.
Yeah.
Right?
Like if you want to factor prime numbers, it's pretty. It's faster than us, right? So things like memory span, like the ability for it to hold, like. I was saying 128,000 tokens in a context window. That's hundreds of pages of text, right? Like it's pretty big. It's still pretty. That's already superhuman, right? So it can recite the whole gigabit memory. Like most humans struggle with that, right? So I guess.
So in terms of psychological capabilities, right? When you
This is really, really challenging, right? So the issue with some of those capabilities, I feel like. So what happened is there's a beautiful quote from Alan Turing, who, by the way, was an incredible genius in both cryptography and AI, which is just stunning. And, in 1950, he said, in 50 years' time, predicting the year 2000, there will be a machine with 10 to the 9th memory, which I think he meant bits. I think he meant 1 billion bits of memory storage, right? And he said that it will pass the imitation game 70% of the time after 5 minutes of examination from a knowledgeable practitioner, right? So imitation game is the Turing test, right? Imitation game is the machine imitates a human. The thing that's stunning about this test is it's not a good test. Why is it not a good test? We're making a machine do something that it's not that good at, which is act like a person, right? But so what does that mean? It means that if it can do that, it's probably already as good or better than us at a lot of things right now. Obviously, it's a lot worse than us at a lot of things. But so there are already dimensions across which it's superhuman, and there's dimensions across which it's subhuman, but to me, I think the point isn't to make something in our own image, right? Like these things should be allowed to be how they are, and we should set up kind of commerce between them so that humans can do amazing human things that humans do. And the machines can do amazing things the machines can do. And we should set up a way to work together with them.
So I was reading it somewhere that, I want the machine to do the dishes so that I can do the art work.
I love it.
But the problem is that the machine is doing the artwork and I have to do the
But when you say the machine is doing the artwork, the thing that's really interesting is that it's kind of doing implementation, right? So in a sense, you can use the machine as a tool to implement your dreams and visions, in a way that's more fully realized. And I guess the thing that I agree with you, and but when people are worried about things like jobs or this kind of thing, all of that has to change, right? Because
so maybe this question I can ask.
What I wanted to conclude on this topic is that people are worried about things like birth rates. Right? They're like, oh, what if it becomes like Japan and the population will become old and there won't be any workers and the economy will collapse, right? Because we need more and more and more and more and more citizens. We need more citizens, right? And what kind of citizens we need? We need workers, right? That's what we need. But here's the thing is, if we have abundant energy, the world's population can be 100 billion. The world population can be 200 billion. How? It sounds insane what I'm saying. I'm not talking about humans anymore. I'm talking about machines. almost all of whom will be disembodied, right? So what I'm saying is there room on the earth for 100 billion entities? It's like, if they're digital and they all live inside of computers, they don't need room. They take up a very small space, right? And so my point is that if they're productive members of society, right, I mean, I'm not saying we have to give them citizenship or rights or anything. We don't have to. We could or we could not. But what I'm saying is the economy can continue to grow, right? The leverage has to be with, so then we get to there's 10,000 of them for every human. That's fine, right? So then you have continued economic growth as long as you have the energy. If you have the energy, things can go very well.
Right. So it's great talking to you. Probably we should have a series of these things. Maybe one focusing on technology, one focusing on vector databases, and I want to continue this series of spirituality for sure, because there are a lot of things today. Largely we have focused on Krishna, but there are a lot of dimensions to spirituality. The way you said that Shintoism in Japan. So here also when a farmer is sowing the crop, at that time also he is sowing the crop with a dharmic view, with a dharmic that maybe may this crop give health to the person who will eat it, right? Then when he is cutting it, he is cutting it with that intention. When the crop goes to the kitchen, then the mother is cooking with that intention, right? So all of these, this crop has that energy, and that energy actually helps the person who is eating that ultimately, right? So ultimately, it's energy which is flowing, and if we can say so. So it was really nice talking to you, Miko. Really, really enjoyed this, and this is my first podcast, right? So I'm so delighted to have a guest like you in the first podcast. I'll thank you so much.
Very fun, wide ranging. Thank you.